Madame la secrétaire générale adjointe des Nations Unies, Madame la directrice générale de l'UNESCO, Vos Excellences, chers collègues, ladies and gentlemen. En tant que l'un des pays...
As one of the co-leader countries for
the financing of education, Belgium would like to express its deep gratitude to all of its colleagues and co-leaders, Fiji and the Campaign for Education, and all of their open attitude to dialogue and their support. We're also grateful to the Global Partnership for Education, the World Bank, and UNESCO for their invaluable technical support for all of the work that we are doing in funding education. Financing education is one of the best tools in order to tap into the transformative capabilities of education. The pressures that we are facing in national budgets has increased. This further underscores the need to use all available resources optimally.
We have before us immense challenges. The world is very slowly overcoming the pandemic, its impact on learning, and destabilization of the educational community itself. All of these consequences have been exacerbated by violent conflicts in different parts of the world, including particularly the Ukrainian conflict and the crisis which followed.
It a aussi incité les ministres de l'Éducation à se transformer en défenseurs chevronnés de la cause de l'éducation, non seulement dans leurs efforts pour garder au maximum les écoles ouvertes, mais aussi pour faire valoir l'éducation comme élément clé de la reprise économique et de la société dans son ensemble. Au niveau régional et communautaire, nous avons pris des mesures collectives pour placer l'éducation au centre du plan de relance.
We've placed this type of policy in the center of our European policies. In Belgium, we've decided to place vulnerable learners at the core of all of our recovery policies. We've also tried to accelerate the digital translation and accessibility to everything online and make it available at all levels of learning. When it comes to financing education, our group has come up with a recommendation with respecting SDG 4, quality education for all, as part of the 2030 agenda. Now, a lot of attention has been given to the mechanisms of international solidarity. SDG 4 and Education 2030 is universal. It brings together the North and the South and can help us bear in mind and work together despite regional differences. Financing is seen from a broad perspective, looking at all levels of education and vocational training. SDG 4 recognizes a universal right to education, and this is something that was recently underscored at the recent conference on adult education in Marrakesh. The challenges for financing and for the partners vary whenever it comes to a specific educational project. Now, we've had a very passionate exchange of views as part of the Roadmap 5, and this is something that will lead to the principles that will help us implement the plan of action, and by having up concrete figures for every aspect of educational expenditure. We will also be coming up with novel approaches to ensure greater fiscal justice. The needs of specific countries should be borne in mind, and each reform has to go through a process of democratic consensus building. We want to make sure that education can help over time eliminate gender inequalities. And lastly, the consultation supports the fact that one share of official development assistance should be earmarked for education. It also talks about other measures that could go into a global pact on financing education for the future. I will conclude by stressing the core concept of education as a public good. Every stakeholder in the educational community, private, public, has a public responsibility nonetheless to be at the service of society. I hope that this pre-summit will give rise to some concrete proposals for financing and will give rise to a new social contract for education as envisaged in the report of the International Commission on the Futures of Education. This report shows quite clearly how human rights, democracy, are indispensable for sustainable development of humankind as a whole. Let's bear this in mind when we start to focus on the budgets for education and the most effective way to make sure that education can carry out its full social role.